Think of yourself in a Blitz game. You're black, the clock is ticking, and instead of a quiet Petrov, you unleash total chaos. Today, we're diving into the Stafford Gambit, move by move, where every turn is a threat, and one slip means instant disaster for your opponent. It all starts with pawns to e4 and e5, followed by knight to f3 and knight to f6, the calm and balanced Petrov Defense. White captures the pawn on e5, the classic book move in this position. Black now has the chance to capture the e4 pawn, but instead develops the other knight to c6, offering a knight exchange. White now faces a choice. Retreating the knight would be too passive, so after the exchange, White figures the e-pawn can be defended and the extra pawn kept. It's a very common idea, and exactly what Black wants. The d-pawn captures the knight, and this is the heart of the Stafford Gambit, sacrificing a pawn and trading knights to rip open the center of the board, all while White's development lags behind. Take a close look at the upcoming attack lines. This is where the real fun begins. Now I'll show you the classical Stafford Gambit setup, the core attacking ideas, and after that, we'll dive into the different variations and creative twists that make this gambit so dangerous. Knight to c3. At this point, White usually focuses on defending the unprotected e-pawn, either with the d-pawn or the knight. Here, White chooses to defend with the knight, developing a piece while reinforcing the center. Bishop to c5, the signature move of the Stafford Gambit. It immediately targets the weak f2 pawn, putting pressure on White's position before development is complete. Since White hasn't castled yet, the usual plan is to bring out the bishop, prepare to castle, and finally secure the f2 pawn. But by then, Black's attack is already underway. Now look at this move, knight to g4, an absolute powerhouse move in the Stafford Gambit. White is calmly preparing to protect and castle, thinking everything is safe. But here's the twist. Castling isn't a mistake, it's a blunder. Why? Because of Black's next move, queen to h4. This is a crazy move that changes everything. Now the f2 pawn is under triple attack, from the bishop, the knight, and the queen. And to make things worse, Black is also threatening checkmate on h2. An absolute disaster for White. One move and the entire kingside collapses. Queen to h4, the signature strike of the Stafford Gambit, instantly threatening checkmate on h2 and piling immense pressure on the f2 pawn. The attack is on, and White's position is hanging by a thread. At this point, White has very few options left. To avoid the immediate checkmate threat, White pushes the pawn to h3, trying to chase away the knight and buy a little breathing room. Here comes the most satisfying moment of the Stafford Gambit. The Black Knight captures the f2 pawn. This move is devastating. It not only threatens to take White's queen, but also sets up a deadly discovered attack from the Black bishop. With danger coming from every direction, White has no choice but to move the queen out of the knight's reach. Or White might consider capturing the knight with the rook, but that's just as bad. The poor queen slides over to e2, trying to survive for just one more move, but watch closely. The next move delivers a devastating double check. The attack is completely unstoppable, and the Stafford Gambit claims yet another victim. Black Knight captures the h3 pawn, a brutal move that opens the king's defense even further and keeps the pressure relentless. At this point, many White players simply resign. The position looks hopeless. But for those who refuse to quit, the desperate king slides over to h1, clinging to survival in a storm of attacks. Next move, Black Knight to f2, a brutal double check from both the queen and the knight. The White king has nowhere to run. It's forced onto its only escape square, g1. And now comes the final killer blow. Black queen to h1, check. It's checkmate. The Stafford Gambit finishes in brutal fashion. Fast, precise, and absolutely unstoppable. So we've just reviewed the classical Stafford Gambit in full detail, move by move, trap by trap. Now it's time to blitz through the alternative lines, lightning fast. Once you understand the classic attack patterns, you'll instantly recognize how these variations connect, and how every single one hides a deadly surprise for the unprepared. White plays pawn to d3, choosing a solid approach to protect the e-pawn. It looks calm and safe, but in the Stafford Gambit, even safe moves can lead straight into danger. Bishop to c5, the classic Stafford move once again. It immediately targets the weak f2 pawn and sets up the familiar attacking pattern. The pressure starts to build, and the trap is already forming. This time, White spots the potential danger from the g4 square and plays bishop to e2, a move meant to shut down the knight's attack and sabotage the gambit. It looks clever, but it only slows the storm. It doesn't stop it. Do you think the gambit is shut down? Not yet. Black strikes back with pawn to h5, an aggressive, defiant move that keeps the attack alive. The idea is simple. Open the h-file, unleash the rook, and keep the pressure on the king's side. The Stafford fire still burns strong. Pawn to h5, and the attack reignites. Black is refusing to back down, pushing forward to open the h-file and keep the initiative alive. The message is clear. The Stafford Gambit doesn't fade. It fights back. White castles, thinking the danger has finally passed. The king looks safe, the pieces are developed, but in the Stafford Gambit, that sense of safety is usually the calm before the storm. Take a look at this move. Knight to g4. Once again, the knight jumps into the attack with perfect timing, eyeing f2 and preparing deadly threats. Just when White thought it was safe, the Stafford strikes back. White tries to stay calm and develops with pawn to c3, aiming to strengthen the center and keep things under control. But in the Stafford Gambit, every slow move gives Black another tempo and another chance to attack. Queen to h4, completing the deadly queen-knight-bishop attacking trio. The pressure on the king's side is enormous, and checkmate threats are in the air. But White finds a critical defensive move. Bishop captures the knight on g4, a decisive and necessary trade to break the attack before it becomes unstoppable. But White didn't calculate the consequences. Capturing the bishop with the h-pawn completely opens the h-file. Now the attack only gets stronger. The bishop joins forces with the queen and rook, forming a new deadly trio. The pressure on the king's side is about to explode. Now White, feeling the heat, desperately pushes the h-pawn forward to block the attack, but that move is a blunder. Instead of stopping the assault, it weakens the entire king's side and gives Black exactly the open lines needed to finish the job. Black's g-pawn captures the white h-pawn. The king's side is torn open. The rook now stares straight down the h-file, and the attack is ready to crash through. The Stafford Gambit once again turns defense into total destruction. White pushes the d-pawn to d4, trying to block the scope of the black bishop and slow down the attack. It's a logical move, but it's already too late. The position is wide open, and Black's attacking pieces are perfectly placed to strike. Black's h-pawn captures White's g-pawn. The king side is completely shattered, open files everywhere, and the black rook is ready to join the assault. The attack is now unstoppable, and the white king is standing on borrowed time. White resigns. It's mate in 3. The attack is so overwhelming that there's no way out. Here's how it would have continued. He Stafford Gambit strikes again. Fast, vicious, and beautifully tactical. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. More chaos, traps, and brilliant checkmates coming your way only on Timur's Tactics.